Welcome everyone to today's video. I will be discussing and analyzing the character of Sasuke Uchiha and his relationship with his teammate Sakura Haruno. And I'll be looking at the significance of his relationship with Sakura and how it actually connects to his character development. So when we introduce to Sasuke's character in Naruto manga, we see him as this cold and emotionless person who even states that he doesn't particularly like anything, but he actually has something that he hates so much, and that thing is his own brother Itachi Uchiha. Though he doesn't necessarily tell us that, but we know later on in the story that that's basically it. So this is how we introduce Sasuke's character, and this is basically how a lot of people know Sasuke or think that Sasuke is just this cold, emotionless boy who wants revenge against his brother. But that is not actually who Sasuke really is. If you look deeper into his character, we realize that rather than just a cold, emotionless boy, Sasuke was actually a boy of tragedy. When we start off with Sasuke's story, we see him as this boy full with so much emotion, actually constantly seeking the love and affection of his father, acknowledgement of his father, and also the affection of his brother as well, wanting his brother to acknowledge him and wanting his brother to actually spend time with him. So he was a boy who constantly sought for love and affection throughout his childhood, and bit by bit we see him getting all that love, right? We see Itachi and the forehead poke, and we also see his relationship with his father slowly deepen through all the flashbacks that we get in the ending of the Naruto manga. And we learn how Sasuke's father actually loved him more than Itachi, and after learning that information, Sasuke was so filled with love and affection for his father. And overall, when you look at Sasuke's character in his childhood, it's obvious that he was a boy who was constantly seeking for love and affection from his parents and from his family, and he actually loved to be loved. But then comes the tragedy, which is the destruction of his entire clan, and that love that he so much desired and wanted was completely taken away from him by someone that he loved deeply, which was his brother Itachi. He couldn't understand it. Why would his brother do something that's tragic to him, take everything away from him, right? After everything that they had been through, after everything, this was a point where Sasuke was just about to start getting a deeper relationship with his dad. I mean, just imagine how disastrous this must have been for Sasuke. So this is basically where Sasuke's character actually started from, and that's what leads to his desire for revenge and his desire to want to destroy his brother Itachi because of what he did to him. How Itachi took everything from him. That is why we see Sasuke being so cold and emotionless at the start of the Naruto manga. But one other thing that people tend to not really notice about Sasuke when it comes to why he was so cold to everyone else is also because after losing the bonds of his family, he was actually scared to even form new bonds and ties with other people in fear that he was gonna lose them again. That's just something we should keep in mind. But then he comes into Team 7, and we slowly start to see Sasuke forming new bonds and ties again, which is basically seen through the Land of Waves arc, where we see Sasuke slowly bonding with Naruto as rivals. But he also starts to develop a relationship with Sakura, which up until this day, a lot of people still do not understand his relationship with Sakura. But notice how the first person that we see Sasuke protecting in the Naruto manga was actually Sakura. And he actually protected Sakura in a way that when Kakashi came up to protect him as well, while he was protecting Sakura, he always liked to butt in. And I'm like, why exactly does Sasuke take protecting Sakura so important? Well, let's just leave it at that. But it's obvious that moment Sasuke entered into Team 7, he just naturally started forming bonds with both Naruto and Sakura. Not because Naruto and Sakura was so special, but because that is Sasuke's nature. It's in his nature to have bonds and connections, to seek for bonds and connections, to want to, form ties with people around him. It's in his nature to actually do so. Though, yes, you can say he had been cold to everyone else up until this point, but the moment he entered into Team 7, it's obvious that he just naturally started bonding with them, and we see him put his life on line to save Naruto from Haku. But Sasuke's relationship with Sakura will slowly deepen as the manga progresses, and you begin to wonder, why exactly is Sasuke having this deeper and deeper relationship with Sakura? It's very simple, because Sakura is someone who was able to affect Sasuke in a very emotional way. Because after losing his parents, Sakura was the only one who was actually showing him love and affection like he had experienced before. Notice how his eyes are hidden when Sakura, cries and hugs him in the end of the Land of Waves arc. Or you see him in the Chunin exams as well, during the Forest of Death, when Sakura hugs him and tells him to not try and kill the Sound Ninjas. All the scenes basically showing that he's beginning to form a sort of bond and relationship with his teammate Year. And why is this so important? Why is this so core to Sasuke's character? Because Sasuke was someone who'd always sought, bonds of love and affection in the past. He lost all of that, but slowly we're beginning to see Sasuke gaining that again. He's beginning to see Sasuke experience that again. And that's very key, because Sasuke is a character who wanted to be loved, right? And when he saw someone showing him so much love and affection, it started to slowly affect him deeply. And notice how, as we see later on in part 1, from that moment where Sakura protects him from Gaara and he tells Naruto to save Sakura no matter what, to the scene of Kakashi telling him to remember the fact that he has new comrades, and to the moment where the Sound Fork beat him up and tells him that if he stays in the village he'll be too weak to face Itachi. In all this moment, we constantly see Sakura in Sasuke's memories. We constantly see that Sakura is someone very important to Sasuke, that it hurt to see die, and it also hurt him to want to leave, and abandon, right? Because in order to chase his desire for revenge and his path of darkness, he would have to abandon his comrades. And to understand exactly why this is so significant, we go to some of the conversation that Sasuke has with Naruto in their first fight. He tells him that he has woken up from the dream of a happy future with his comrades, which meant that when Sasuke entered into Team 7, he started to form a new dream, right? He started to have a new dream. Slowly, that desire for revenge actually started to go away. Why? Because he was beginning to experience what he had before. He literally tells Naruto that, see, I began to experience I began to see the shadow of my family in Team 7. In other words, the bonds that he started to form with his comrades and with Sakura was that of a family, right? And that is basically how we can describe Sasuke's relationship with Sakura in part 1. He saw Sakura like a family. Sakura was someone that was dear to him. Sakura was someone that, as he stated, I don't want to see those dear to me die in front of my eyes. But why is this so? Because Sakura had always been showing Sasuke so much love and affection, worrying about him, his safety, and constantly trying to help him when he was, in the curse-marked state in a forest of death. And Sakura was the one who was there with him, right? You can see him clinging on to her fist, trying to, endure the pain, and it was Sakura who took care of him during that whole period. She was fighting to protect him from the Sound Ninjas. I mean, he saw how she was crying and so worried about him when he had almost died, after the Haku fight. And seeing all of the scenes, it's easy to understand why Sasuke started to have deep feelings of affection for Sakura as well. But why is this significant? Because Sasuke, as a character, was someone who started off the Naruto manga with that desire for revenge, but slowly this bond of love that he was forming with Sakura was beginning to sway him away from that goal. And that's important to understand the dynamic that we'll begin to see between these two characters as we go later on in the manga. Now, if we go all the way to the first interaction that Sasuke and Sakura ever had in the manga, it doesn't really sound so fine, right? Sasuke basically tells Sakura, "You're annoying, you piss me off." But that is not where the entire dynamic ends. And some people think that Sasuke still has that same annoying mentality towards Sakura from that chapter 3 all the way to chapter 693 of the manga. He still thinks that Sakura is just annoying. No, it is actually wrong to think so, because the story basically tells us that Sakura bit by bit became someone dear to Sasuke as he began to actually see how genuine her feelings were for him, that they were not just some selfish or self-centered feelings. They were feelings of desire to help, protect, and also save him from the dark burden that he was actually carrying at this point in the story, right? You see him stating this in the tuning exams before his fight, where Sakura was telling him not to go and fight because of his health and his safety, and he's like, look, this is my own burden to carry. It's my burden to bear alone. You don't have to bear it together with me. But even though Sasuke was saying this, deep down in his heart, he was surprised to see that Sakura cared about him so deeply that she wanted to take away his burden at that point, that curse mark that was completely destroying him, and she wanted to, pull him out of the training exams because she cared so much about him. And notice when he was in the middle of his fight and the curse mark is about to take over him, he's remembering that moment, and what makes him able to overcome the curse mark is that memory where he says, those people, they worried too much about me, and that's why I can't let it take over him, right? I can't let it take over me because my comrades, my friends, Sakura specifically here, she worries so much about me. So you can slowly see how Sakura is affecting Sasuke's character, right? He starts off part 1 as this boy who's just seeking revenge, but by the time we enter into the Gaara fight, the Konoha Crush arc, you see that Sasuke is completely transformed. He's not just a boy who just wants revenge. He's now becoming much more complex and intriguing. He's now someone who will lay down his own life, his own dreams, and his own goals in order to protect what he had now found. He started the manga with a dream of revenge, but he slowly started to develop another dream, a dream of a happy future with his comrades, right? With his friends Naruto, and with a person that he had slowly started to develop feelings for, which was Sakura. This is not just some twisted, interpretation here. It's just factual, right? That Sasuke had slowly started to develop feelings for Sakura in the Naruto manga, and the Naruto series, the Naruto storyline, or whatever you want to call it. It's just so obvious. Go all the way back to the ending of the search for Tsunade arc after Tsunade healed Sasuke, and then he sees Sakura peeling the apple. Just see how he looks at Sakura, and then look at how sad he became the moment he remembered Sakura's face. Just imagine why exactly Sasuke will be having those kind of thoughts if he doesn't really have any kind of relationship with Sakura at this point in the storyline, or doesn't have some kind of deep relationship with Sakura at this point in the storyline, right? It's obvious that Sakura's love and affection was something precious to him, that when he started to see Sakura smile at Naruto, it felt like as though Naruto was taking away someone important to him, and was taking away that affection that Sakura always used to show to him, and now it's now being positioned at Naruto. Why would he be jealous if Sakura's affection and love didn't mean anything to him, wasn't anything special? So it was definitely something special to Sasuke, and it was something that Sasuke held very dearly, hence why we see him actually feel very frustrated. Notice how he closes his eyes when he's walking past Sakura at the end of part 1, when he decides to leave the village. Just you can see the interaction, you can see that sense of frustration in Sasuke's expression, that he's like, this is the last person I want to meet, because he already had a hard time deciding to leave the village, and now he has to confront somebody he's already slowly developing feelings for in the village, and now he has to confront this person before he goes. And that's why he turns back after everything that Sakura says to him, and he says, you're still annoying. Why is he saying this? Because at this point in the storyline, Sakura is someone who is hindering him from pursuing that goal of going down the path of darkness in order to get power to kill Itachi. Yes, because he was about to do that. He was about to go down the wrong path, and Sakura was someone who was trying to stop him from doing that. He didn't really think he was going down the wrong path. To him, He believed he was doing what he needed to do in order to get the power to kill Itachi, but it was a path that was definitely destructive and that was going to destroy him. But all that mattered was that he would kill Itachi, that's all. But in order to achieve that goal, he would have to abandon the new bonds and ties that he had just formed. And this makes Sasuke's character feel just even more intriguing, because he's not just this straightforward guy who just wants a friend, that's just all. He's beginning to have a sense of conflict. He's conflicted between remaining in the village because of the bonds he's now formed with Sakura and Naruto as well. But looking at this from the perspective of Sakura here, we're looking at Sasuke's relationship with Sakura, so I will not really be using Naruto too often, right? Because of this new relationship he's beginning to form with Sakura, it's making it hard for him to go about that initial goal, and it's the reason why he refers to her as annoying right now. She's making it hard for him to do what he wants to do, and it's definitely making him feel pissed off. But notice how he smiles, right? He's not really angry with Sakura, but he's also not so happy about it as well. It's like a conflicted feeling where he's both happy, sad, and upset. But one thing that we can say for sure was that Sasuke was grateful. He was grateful because even though it was just for a short while, he had experienced love and affection that was taken away from him when he was a young boy. That's why Sasuke thanks Sakura before he leaves the village. And this is, in my opinion, the most significant moment in Sasuke's character arc in part 1. And it shows just how much he had developed from the boy who didn't care about anyone to someone who would literally thank someone. Alright? That's just not like Sasuke. And you see how Sakura affects Sasuke's development in a lot of ways. You know, like we see him literally acknowledging that Sakura's ability at Genjutsu was better than even his own, despite the fact that Sasuke at this point, he had a 2 Tomoe Sharingan, right? He had a 2 Tomoe Sharingan, but yet Sakura had no dojutsu, and he was looking at her and says, you know, your Genjutsu skills are the best here. That's character development. That's a huge deal and a huge deal of difference from the Sasuke that we saw at the start of the manga in chapter 3, who basically didn't have anyone's business and basically stated he doesn't like anyone, to the Sasuke who would basically bother of cheering someone up and you'll bother about someone else's feelings. Like Sasuke is just someone who really bothers about that kind of stuff. Whether you're feeling bad or feeling good, it's none of his business. All he cares about is killing Itachi. But you see how Sakura, you know, her love for him in part 1, it develops Sasuke as a character, and it makes him to feel a lot different from the Sasuke that we actually just saw when we introduced into the Naruto manga. So after all these interactions and all these moments that we see in part 1, we see Sasuke's relationship with Sakura develop from him just seeing Sakura as someone who's just annoying and just pissed him off, to someone who he became strongly connected with and he became grateful to for the affection that she has shown to him, someone he had started to really love and see as dear to him. So how does Sakura affect Sasuke in part 2? Well, she actually continues to affect him. Now, just barring the whole 5K Summit arc, you know, that happens, because in all honesty, I hate when people try to judge Sasuke's relationship with Sakura just based on the 5K Summit arc, because that whole arc was meant to show us Sasuke at his lowest, so him trying to kill Sakura does not mean in any way that it cancels out the fact that, or more like cancels out all the development that Sasuke got in part 1. I just say, oh well, because Sasuke tried to kill Sakura, the 5K Summit arc means that he never cared about her throughout the entirety of the story. That's just dumb. Sasuke at this point was in the darkness, he lost his mind, and Sakura herself was also in her own state of conflict and trauma. She was trying to kill Sasuke, and yeah, that's basically why that whole killing thing happened. Sakura was never targeted. He even asks Sakura, Sasuke asks Sakura, he says, why are you here? Sakura, what are you doing here? It's obvious that he didn't even expect Sakura to be there. And if you ask me personally speaking, I don't think that Sasuke cared about if he killed Sakura or not at that point in the story. But he didn't have feelings for anyone. He was completely in the darkness. He was at his very, very, very lowest. And what even confirms this the more is when we go over to that Killer Brief fight. Notice how, despite the fact he had learned the truth about Itachi, when he's saving Team Taka, he's remembering Team 7. His bonds with Sakura was still affecting him even after learning about how the village had treated his clan badly. Even despite the fact he had learned that truth, his relationship with Sakura, the relationship he had with Sakura in part one of the Naruto manga, was still something that was still there to his heart, right? All the love and affection that she showed to him in part one was still something that was still important, and was still something that he remembered with a smile, right? It was still something that was still precious to him. There was still a place in his heart that still valued those memories and those time of being with Sakura, being with Naruto, and also being with Kakashi. So when we get over the 5K Summit arc and we get into the war arc, and after the whole battle with Kaguya, because I feel like the point where we get the most significant Sasuke moment was after the battle with Kaguya. Although we can bring up the fact that Sasuke saved Sakura and Kakashi from the infamous Tsukuyomi, and when he does that, he states that Sakura just happened to be there to try and actually downplay his actions, because Sasuke is someone who always downplays his actions, especially in part 2, because he's trying to separate himself from his bonds. He formed these bonds, he's trying to separate himself from them. That's why he tells Naruto in the start of Shippuden and the Tenji Bridge arc that the only reason why I didn't kill you back then was just on a whim. And we know that's not true. We know it's because of the bond he had with Naruto. That's why he couldn't kill him. He wasn't on a whim. That's just force, right? And that's basically what we see about Sasuke Shippuden. He keeps lying to himself, deluding himself that he doesn't have any bond or connection with his teammates anymore, but that's forced because he still has. There's still place in his heart that still cares about Sakura deeply. That boy who stated that I don't want to see those dear to me die, yes, he was not completely gone. Sakura was still someone dear to him at that point in the story, and that's why he saves her from the infinite Tsukuyomi. And also why we see him, having that whole moment with Sakura in Kaguya's dimension. So after all of this, we get the Kaguya post Kaguya moment where Sasuke wants to kill the 5 Kage in order to fully enter into darkness, because at this point he believes that that's the only way he can be able to fulfill Itachi's dream of peace, and he believes that the only way he can bring peace and stability to the world is by basically cutting off all the bonds and ties that he had completely. And Sasuke is about to do this in one of, in my opinion, Sasuke's most significant moments in the manga, aside from the end of part 1 scene. We see Sakura, stating to Sasuke how she cares about him so much, even after he tried to kill her, and that despite everything that happened, if she could, take away all this pain into her heart and actually save him by her own self, she would have. But at this point she can't, because she can't fight him, obviously. Sasuke just captured all the 9 Bijus, so she doesn't stand a chance against Sasuke. But as Sakura speaks all those words, she then states this, and I love this line: but if there is still a little corner of your heart that still thinks about me, don't leave again. Or in another translation, don't slip further away. I really love this line so much because it's so true to Sasuke's character. Yes, even despite the fact that he wanted to enter into the darkness completely, there was still a place in his heart that still thought about his teammates. That's why we got that whole sequence of Sasuke remembering Team 7 during the Killer Bee fight. There was still a place in his heart that still thought deeply about Sakura. There was still a place in his heart that still cared about Sakura. And Sakura was basically using that to influence Sasuke and try to make Sasuke, stop from doing what he was about to actually do. And why this is so good is because of the reaction we actually see from Sasuke. We see Sasuke's face shake, and we also see that pain smile expression from him, and then the famous "you're still very annoying" line, which again I feel people misunderstand this line a lot by thinking that Sasuke just thinks that Sakura is just an annoying bitch. No, Sasuke doesn't think that. In fact, that's far from the truth. Sasuke only uses that line because of how Sakura is making him remember those bonds and ties that he formed in part 1, and making him, remember those memories that he had, the comforting memories, as Data Book 2 actually put it, that Sasuke, he actually had comforting memories of Team 7, when he was leaving. You see how he looked at that photo. You know it was hard for him to leave Naruto Sakura. And we know that throughout the story, he struggled to really cut those ties and bonds, because deep down within him, he was someone who loved to be loved, and he loved affection and bonds, right? That's why he desperately sought the love of his father and the attention of his brother. So having people who loved and cared about him so deeply, it was something that Sasuke, he treasured so much. He treasured it, and it was precious to him. That's why he couldn't afford to see Naruto and Sakura die. And that's why Sakura's words can affect him, when she tells him, if there's still a little corner of your heart that still thinks about me, don't walk away again. So, in all honesty, it annoys me when I see people pull off the scene or trying to help Lady C by just say, oh, well, Sasuke tried to kill Sakura. How can Sakura think that there's still place in her in Sasuke's heart that still thinks about her when he tried to kill you? But the problem with saying this is completely ignoring Sasuke's character, completely ignoring, that the fact that Sasuke had actually thought about Team 7 post Itachi, right? The fact that he still had, the thoughts of each member of Team 7 and the bond he had with each of them, even after learning about the truth of Itachi, just basically shows us that Sakura still had a place in Sasuke's heart at this point, and she could influence his actions, right? Or more of like influence his feelings at this point very strongly. And when Sakura states that things could go back to the way they used to be, it's also very significant because, whether you like it or not, Sasuke loved the old days. We see a picture of him, smiling when Sakura is talking about the fun that they had when they were constantly going on missions together. And you see in that panel, you see Sasuke smiling because he loved those times. There were times that he absolutely loved, and they were precious to him. And Sakura was telling him that, yes, you could go back to those times again, right? Go back to the times where you had your beautiful bonds and connections and you had a bright future, or take the dark path of pain and not actually having any connections with anyone. We know fully well that Sasuke was also someone who hated loneliness because, right, he obviously talked about that part at the start of the Naruto manga in chapter 3 when he talked about how painful loneliness was. So he understood very well that he was going to be, living in pain for the rest of his life. So when Sakura reminds him of the bonds that he has, the feelings that he still has deep down inside of him, that doesn't actually want to do this, we see that Sasuke falters, and you see that pain span. The fact is that this point, he believes that there is no turning back. This is what he must do. He doesn't think there's any other way. That's why when Kakashi scolds him for, all of the actions that he took, like putting her on the genjutsu or stating that he doesn't have any reason to love her, Kakashi scolds him and tells him how genuine Sakura feels about him. And we see Sasuke remembering his family, and they're going to say that the love that Sakura was offering to him was a thing of the past for him. In other words, he basically believed that he could not experience that love anymore. He lost his family, and he had cut the ties that he had with his comrades. He could not have those ties anymore. That's what he believed, and he believed it was just a thing of the past. And you can see how his eyes are hidden when he says that. Sasuke at this point was completely lost in his own delusion and in his own darkness. But I love the fact that Sakura was someone that, influenced his feelings, and more than anything else, brought out Sasuke's true character, made us realize that even though Sasuke was about to kill Naruto, deep down inside of him, he still cared deeply about Naruto, still cared deeply about Sakura, adding further depth and complexity to Sasuke's character before he fights Naruto. So Sasuke is not just cold-hearted, emotionless dude. We see that he has emotions. Sakura is able to bring out Sasuke's emotions. The most emotional moments and scenes that Sasuke has in the Naruto manga are always attributed with Sakura. It is always with Sakura that we see Sasuke's emotions. We see Sasuke blushing, we see Sasuke smiling, we see Sasuke thanking, being grateful, we see Sasuke stating he doesn't want to see those dear to him die. We see Sasuke, having concealed emotions. We see his eyes being hidden. All of the scenes of Sasuke being presented to us as someone who is filled with so much emotion, and someone who's just more than just a cold-hearted and revenge, and power-hungry person, Sakura's character, more than anything else, brings out, who Sasuke truly is. Because boy who's just hungry for power, or just a boy who just want to cut all the ties that he has with his comrades because he doesn't care about them. No, rather he's a boy who was, hurt and traumatized at a very young age, and then manipulated and further psychologically brainwashed into thinking that he had to cut the ties that he had with his comrades in order to be able to achieve his goals. That was the goal of killing Itachi. And all of this trauma further made it difficult for him to actually, accept those ties into his life. And we see that Sasuke was just more than just a power hungry person, right? He was someone who was traumatized, destroyed from within by what he had experienced in his past. And all that trauma was what was leading him down the path that he was taking. The reason why he wanted to cut off all ties completely and go back to being all alone is still because he couldn't get over that trauma. He couldn't, have that confidence to form bonds and connections anymore after what he had experienced before in the past. He didn't believe that he could actually do that again. He still had that fear, of once again losing the pain of losing people that he cared about. And more than anything else, at this point in the story, I just feel like Sasuke thought that he was, beyond redemption. He had gone too far already. There was no going back at this point. And he just believed that the ninja world, the way it was too imperfect, and he's the only one who could fix it. And all those things were actually driving Sasuke towards the path he was taking. But Sakura kept on being that reminder to Sasuke that he could actually have the peaceful and happy future that he once dreamt of, as he told Naruto, right? And that, to me, it just shows you how significant Sakura actually was to Sasuke's character, right? Contrary to what some people think, that she was never significant. And that's why we see Sasuke, giving his apology after his fight with Naruto, because if there was one person that he was deeply, sorry to after everything that happened, was Sakura, because she was someone that Sasuke cared deeply for. Like I said, when we see that whole hospital scene with Sasuke, is having that whole panel where he's looking at Sakura and then he's thinking about Sakura deeply. She was someone who had affected him on a deep level. She made his curse mark recede. She protected him from Gaara, protected him from the Sound Ninjas, and more than anything else, she was the one who, she was trying to stop him from leaving the village, making him falter again and again. And she was also the one that he left with those words of thanks. So after everything that he had done to someone who he had cared about deeply, someone who had made him, remember the feelings of being loved all over again, experience those feelings all over again, Sakura was basically like the last person he ever wanted to hurt, and was the person he was the most sorry to for actually hurting, due to his twisted, ideologies or philosophies that he got at the end of part 1 and in Shippuden as well. And to further prove this, you actually see Sasuke sharing that, as Japanese people put it, the Uchiha ultimate expression of love, which is the forehead poke. And I really love how Kishimoto developed it, right, from the bond between Sasuke and Itachi to the bond between Sasuke and Sakura. In a lot of ways, when you think about it, it really mirrors, so they really have a lot of powers to each other. Itachi loved Sasuke no matter what he did, and Sakura was also like that same, figure to Sasuke, someone who would continue loving him no matter how, how low he had fallen. She would always love him and always keep trying to actually help him, never giving up on him. And as Sasuke stated in his own light novel, in the Casket Hidden, he stated that no matter how many times he had ditched, abandoned, and actually been rude to this particular person, she'd always kept, trying to give a spring sunshine to his own dark life, which was something that Sasuke was deeply grateful for, that Sakura did not abandon him, and Sakura actually kept on, showing him all that love. And I just feel like I feel like the fandom really tends to downplay, the significance of Sasuke's relationship with Sakura, how it ties back to his family, it ties back to his overall character as a boy who lost love in the past and was able to regain it through his newfound bonds and connections, which is the most interesting and most exciting aspect of Sasuke's character. Developing from the boy who just had a whole dream and let's say one-dimensional dream for revenge to something much more complex, to a boy who is conflicted by his past, conflicted with his present, and not really knowing the right path to actually take. Again, it adds a lot of conflict to his character, and Sakura gives a lot of conflict to Sasuke's character, right? In the chapter 693, and also when he left the village, it actually gives conflict to his character. You see Sasuke hesitating and faltering because of Sakura, and we see her bringing his deep emotions out, right? Like his feet shaking, him having that pained smile on his face, and him actually thanking her before leaving the village. All of these scenes, they actually bring out Sasuke's emotions, making Sasuke feel a more emotional, relatable character who's going through a lot of conflict and just a one-dimensional revenge-seeking boy, actually. Alright, and someone who just wants revenge, wants power, stuff like that, which is how some people actually think of Sasuke. So those are just my thoughts on, Sasuke's character's relationship with Sakura, and I hope I, kind of help you in understanding Sasuke's character a bit better. I also plan on doing a video when talk about Sasuke's relationship with Naruto, even maybe is also his relationship with Kakashi. So if you enjoyed this video, do want to like and subscribe. I do both Naruto and Boruto content on this channel. So have a great day.